All right, so today what we're doing is we're doing a new lesson. But within that, you see a lot of words that look the same. They are the same, right? What's one word that's the same that you've been seeing for a while now? GCF. What's the other one? Factoring. What's the other one? Solving. We've been solving a lot, right? Polynomials still, right? There's a couple new ones. Grouping is new, and if you look at the problems on the inside, how do they look different than the ones we've been doing? There's four terms. They're longer, right? So if we're trying to factor or solve something with four terms, we can't use the same steps we've been using in the past because they're not trinomials. They're not binomials. If they are, use those steps. Okay, that's review. But today we're going to have things with four terms in them. So what do we do to factor and solve those? Well, we have some new steps. Okay, we got some new steps. That's it. Okay. So look at the two sets of steps here. What do you notice about them? One extra step on the bottom. One of my students last block said there's 17 steps. Is that true? No, it's not true, right? Isn't there really only 9 steps? Is it 1 through 8 the same exact steps? Yeah, right? I did it here. I just changed the color of the 9th step because that's the only extra thing we have to do when we solve, right? We don't do that step if we don't need to. If we don't need to do that step, don't do it. Okay? It's only when we need to use it. Okay? So if we're factoring, don't even worry about it. All right? Okay, so let's look at the first one. Let's look at number 1. It's got 4 terms, right? Well, we start out the same. Is it in standard form?
Yes.
Yep. It goes in order, right? Third, second, first, no power. GCF. Is there an overall big GCF for all of them? The last two, 25, right? The last two have 25 in common. The first 3 have an X in them, right? The first 3 of them, the first 3 have X's, right? But the last one doesn't have an X. So no, they don't all. They need to all have something in common. So that's step 1. Step 2 says, okay, since they don't all have something in common, I'm going to break them into smaller groups. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break the first 2 into a group. So the first 2 I'm going to put into one group. The second 2 I'm going to put into another group with a plus in the middle. Always a plus in the middle. It's always going to be a plus in the middle when you do this step. Okay? The reason I did this is because they don't all have something in common, but when I put them into smaller groups, don't they now have something in common? So let's look at the first group, the first smaller group. What can I divide them both by now? X squared, right? Now I can divide them both by x squared. Good. So GCF always goes out in front. Okay, so when I do that, what's left over? X is left over here, plus what's left over there? 1, yeah, good. Not a 0. Someone said 0 earlier. No, if we divide something by itself, that's once. Okay, good. Now we're going to do step 3. That was step 3. Step 4 says do the exact same thing with the other group, the other pair, the other. Okay, so I got a plus here. So what about this group over here? What do they have in common? 25, right? The leading number is negative. So not only am I going to divide by 25, I'm going to divide by negative 25. Just like I did yesterday and the day before that. Okay, GCF goes in front, as always. So that leaves an X plus 1 again, right? Okay, we're done with step 4. Do you see anything that's the same now on the step we're on? Do you see anything, anything? So we have two terms. So now I have two terms. I don't have four anymore. I have two, and I'll highlight them right now. This guy right here is one term. This guy right here is another term. They're both joined together by a plus. Do those two highlighted parts have anything in common? They do, right? What do they share in common? X plus 1. So whatever they share in common, I want you to write as a binomial right underneath. So this is how I'm going to do that. Since they both have it, I'm just going to write it down once. Okay, that was step 6. Step 7 says what's left over. Put them together. So it's x squared, and instead of plus a negative 25, isn't that the same thing as minus 25? Adding a negative is the same thing as minus 25. Okay, that was step 7. Step 8 is anything that I have difference of squares. Yeah, they are, right? Which one's difference of squares? This guy right here, right? So it would break down to 1x and 1x, right? And then what's the square root of 25? So, bless you. One of them's a positive and one of them's a minus, right? Well, the other one's not difference of squares, so I just write it down here. The other one that I didn't use earlier. No more difference of squares. I finish after step 8 because it said just factor. Just factor. So that's what I would put into the answer box. All one box, you would put those. It's got 3 factors. Okay. Let's try number 2 together. Let's try number 2. Number 2 is also a factor question. Okay. So number 2, overall, is there a GCF between all 4 terms? No. So skip that step. So let's put the first 2 into a group and the second 2 into a group. Plus in the middle, always a plus in the middle. The signs go with the number. And then you always just add a plus in the middle. Okay. The first group. Is there anything in common in the first group? Yep, I can take out an x squared here. After I take away 2 powers of x, what's left over? 2x minus 5. Good. Okay, plus. Then I'm going to do the same for the second group. Here's the kit. I'll tell you what the trick is. The trick is we want the other one to match this guy here. So what do I have to do to the second group division-wise to match 2x minus 5? There you go. That's going to tell me what I divide by, negative 2. I want these guys to match because that means I can do the next step. The next step is the 2 that match, write them down as a binomial. Leftovers. What are the leftovers? X squared minus 2. Good. Are any of those like terms? Or not like terms, sorry. Difference of squares. Are any of those difference of squares? This one's super close, right? This one's super close. It's got a squared. It's got a 1 in the front of the x squared. It's got a minus, but the 2 is not on my list over there. The 2 is not on my list, so it doesn't quite make the cut. So because it's no difference of squares, I leave it alone. Done. Okay. Okay, try number 3 on your own. I want you to do number 3 right now on your own. Okay, so I did the first, I'm up to step 7. I finished step 7 up here. I might be done, I might not be done. I haven't checked step 8. Step 8 was difference of squares. Well, you do have difference of squares here. This one's difference of squares because 16 is on my list. 1 is on my list. It's x squared and it's a negative or a minus sign. Yep. So the square root here, 16 is 4, so it has an x, so it needs an x. So 4x and 4x. One of them's positive, one of them's minus, and the square root of 1 is 1. Yep. And then the other one is not difference of squares, so I just bring it down like that. There, I'm done. Okay. So that was factoring. We did everything up to step 8. We stopped at step 8. We didn't do step 9. Now the next one, the next two are solving. Okay, so let's look at number 4 if you're not already looking at it. It doesn't say solve anywhere. So how do we know it's solving? What tells us? Yeah, so which part of it tells us we're going to solve? There you go. That's what I'm looking for. Solutions means find the answer, which means solve, right? Because a lot of times when I'm helping you guys, Mr. Flores, what am I doing here? Well, look for those keywords. If it says solutions, find the solutions, that means you're going to solve it. So use those steps. Okay? Right there, solutions. All right, so we're going to use the same steps, except now we're going to break into step 9. Okay? So step 9 says, when we get there, we'll use it. Okay? Okay, so is there an overall big GCF? No. So next step, 2 small groups. Okay? GCF from the first group, and then GCF from the second group. So from the first group, the GCF is going to be, I think just x squared, right? And then it's going to be 4x plus 7. Now I need to make a 4x plus 7 in the other one. I need the other one to be 4x plus 7. So what am I going to divide by? Negative 3, yeah. Okay. Got matching. So that one I'm going to write down here. 4x plus 7. Leftovers. Yep. There you go. Difference of squares. Are any of these guys difference of squares? No. Close. If that minus 3 or negative 3 was a negative 4 or a negative 9 or a negative 16, yeah, absolutely. But no, it's not. So we don't use that step. So that's where we stopped in the past. Now we need to solve. So the step 9 says set each factor term equal to 0. How many different factor terms do I have? 2. I have 2 of them, right? I have 4x plus 7 and I have x squared minus 3. I'm going to set both of those equal to 0. We've done this before, and I'm going to solve. So the left one I'm going to solve first. The left one is linear, so I'm only going to get one answer. Negative 7 over 4. It can't be reduced. Nothing goes into both 7 and 4 besides 1. And it didn't say to round, so I'm going to leave it as negative 7 over 4. So how many answers should I have? How many answers overall should I have? 3, because this didn't we have cubed at the top? That was a degree. So this guy has my other 2 answers. My other 2 are locked in here. Okay? So if my other 2 are locked in there, I got to go find them. So what do you think the first step's going to be? To solve, to unlock the other 2, what do you think I'm going to do here? What do you think? Take a random guess, a wild guess. Add 3 to both sides. Yep. Those of you that said that, good. Add 3 to both sides. X squared. So I got to do the opposite because I did the opposite. I added 3 to both sides, right? So I got to keep doing the opposite. So squared, what's the opposite of squared? Close, not quite division. What's the opposite of squared? Square root. Yeah, square root. Okay. So I go to my calculator and I put the square root of, I put the square root 3 square root, and I get this long decimal, irrational number, right? They don't want me to round though. Never, didn't say round anywhere, right? Didn't say round anywhere. So I'm not going to change it to a decimal because it's not a nice, pretty number. So what do I do instead? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it as the square root of 3. Okay. But didn't I say I had 3 answers? Or, so I need another one, right? So remember square roots? Remember when we said, okay, what's the square root of 16? What is the square root of 16? 4, because 4 times 4 makes 16, right? What else times itself makes 16? Not 8 times 8 makes 64. What else? There's another number that I multiply by itself and makes positive 16. Negative 4 times a negative 4, right? These always have 2 answers, right? So the other answer is going to be the negative version of that. There's my other 2 answers. So anytime you're solving and you have a square root, you're going to have 2 answers, a positive one and a negative one, because there's always a positive one and there's always a negative one. So there's my other 2 answers. Okay, so now I have 3. I'm done. None of them happen to be in the problem. In the top, it said imaginary. None of them happen to be imaginary. So, oh well. All right. Let's look at number 5. Am I still doing the same thing? Even though the directions change, right? Did the directions change? Well, exactly. Exactly. Still says solution. So I'm solving, right? Um, but this one, what type of solutions do they want? Only real. So if it's not real, what would it be? Imaginary. They're saying, no, I don't want any imaginary. So if you get imaginary answers, don't put that in Delta Math. Okay? So if we do encounter any imaginary, we're just not going to put them in as an answer. We're just going to put the real ones. So how many answers should I get for this guy here when I'm done? 3. Okay. All right, so here we go. No GCF, big GCF, I should say. So I'm going to put the first 2 into a group, put the second 2 into a group with the plus sign in the middle. Okay. GCF of the first one, x squared is the biggest thing that can go into both. So I put the GCF in front. That's going to leave 2x plus 3 plus. Now, what do I divide by if I want another 2x plus 3? 25. There you go. 25. Good. 25 over here. 2x plus 3. Okay. Now I'm looking for the ones that repeat. So looking for the ones that look the same. 2x plus 3. Okay. What's left over? X squared plus 25. Good. Difference of squares? No. Again, really, really close. The x squared plus 25 is really, really close. If that was a minus 25, it would be difference of squares. But because of that plus, it's not difference of squares. Okay? So if we were factoring, we'd be done. But now we got to break open that step 9. Step 9 says separate. I have 2 factored parts, right? I have 2 factored, and I need to set equal to 0. Okay? So I'm going to, over here, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So I get 2x equals negative 3. Divide both sides by 2. I get negative 3 over 2. Leave it as a fraction because it can't be reduced. Don't change it to a decimal, just reduce it. Okay. What about the other one? How am I going to solve the other one? 25 from both sides, right? So I get x squared equals negative 25. What's the opposite of squaring? Square root. X equals, what is it going to be? 5 with an imaginary. So how do we tell if it's an imaginary? With a I, right? We put an I to take note of that. So it'd be 20. It's going to be 5I, and then where's my other answer? Negative 5I. Yep, because this one had 2 answers locked in it. Because of this squared right here, that means it had 2 answers locked in there. So I got to find the other one too. So I go back, and so I type in this problem. Okay, so I get 3 boxes. Negative 3 over 2, 5I, negative 5I. I hit enter, and it says, nope, you did something wrong. Yeah, what answers am I going to plug in for this problem? Only this one right here. For this problem, only this one, because they just wanted the real answers. They didn't want the imaginary answers, depending on the directions. Okay, so if you don't know, read the directions. Read the directions, and it'll tell you which answers they want. Do I want all of them? Do I want just the imaginary? Do I want just the real? Yes, sir. On this question here, if you put, I might take off like half a point. I take off something because it's wrong, but I wouldn't take off a whole lot because you didn't. It wasn't a big mistake. It was a small mistake. So on this one, if you put all 3 answers on a test, and out of a 4, I'd probably give you like a 3.5, very close to full credit. But I take off something because didn't follow directions. Okay. Okay. So now what I want you to do is I have 2 problems up here. I want you to do those problems in your notes. I'm going to pass around the tape. Some of you have tape. Look behind you if you're in the back. If there's tape behind you, look in the back. If you're not in the back, there's one right there. This is your tape. You guys got tape coming back. You guys got tape back there. And you guys got tape right here. Okay? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Let's see. Both directions are solve for all solutions, real and imaginary. Solve for all solutions, real and imaginary. Okay, so I'll give you about 10 minutes to do those. Tape, and then we'll go over the questions. We'll go over the answers when you're done. Example 6. So both of them are up here. Like I said, I'll give you about 10 minutes to solve and tape both. Okay, so the first one, I'll do the first one right now, and then if you're still working, I'll do the second one. Okay, so the first one, Okay, so the first one, I'm going to group the first two. Group the second two. Plus sign in the middle. Okay. The first two have x squared as their GCF. So that's going to leave 3x minus 1. The second two, I already have a 3x minus 1 though. So yeah, divide by 1. Yep. Got to divide by 1 here. Even though it doesn't change anything, I got to have a number out here. There we go. So that I ensure that I have the same thing. 3x minus 1. Leftovers are x squared plus 1. Difference of squares? No, not for this one. Nope. X squared plus 1. If it was minus 1, it'd be difference of squares. So now I'm going to separate it, separate them, set them equal to 0, and solve for all three answers. So over here I get 1 plus 1 plus 1. 3x equals 1. Divide by 3. I get one answer as 1/3. Okay, my other two are locked in over here. Subtract 1, subtract 1. Opposite of squared is square root, right? Square root. So what's the square root of negative 1? I and negative I, or negative 1i. Either one works. So there's all my three answers. 2 imaginary, 1 real. Okay. The last one, number 7 now. Number 7. Number 7. Okay, so okay, GCF for the first one. So definitely x squared. And yeah, 9 as well, right? 9 as well is the biggest number that goes into both 18 and 27. 3 is, but the biggest number is 9. So I need 9 out in front, or 9x squared out in front. 2x minus 3. Now look at the second group. What do I have to divide by to get a 2x minus 3? There you go, negative 25. That's going to be over here. 2x minus 3. What do they got in common? Leftovers. Good. Any of those difference of squares? Yeah, the second one is 9x squared minus 25. That one's difference of squares. So what's the square root of 9x squared? 3x. So it needs a 3x here, and I need a 3x here. What's the square root of 25? Plus 5 minus 5. Okay. Now I have 3 columns I'm going to need. because I have three different parts that I need to solve. So the first one is here. The second one is here. The third one is here. Okay. So luckily, these are all linear, means they're only going to give me one answer each. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X equals 3 divided by 2. Flores. Yeah, sure. No problem. Smith. Okay. Minus 5, minus 5. Negative 5 over 3. And then the last one. Yep. Thinking that's going to be the answer. All three of those. They're all real. Okay. Alrighty. So no new assignment today. We'll do the assignment on Monday. So make sure you have these notes. If you haven't taped them in, tape them in. Okay. Tapes come in from either the front or the back. You have the tape, pass it. If it's in the back, pass it forward.